These are the kind of books that I'm keeping for a rainy day if that rainy day is 7 years long. Hi, welcome, come on in. My name is Aoife and today I am taking you through some of the longest books on my TBR. By that, I don't mean the books that have been there for the longest time or the ones that have lingered and watch me pick other books that have actually come on a little bit closer to now. I mean the ones that have the chunkiest look, the ones that have the heftiest page count, and the ones that are probably going to take me a little bit longer to get through than others. My general pace for reading is about 3 to 5 days for a 300-page book, so I went for anything that was over around 400 pages as a TBR chunker. First one up is not actually a book, it is an entire author, and that is Marian Keyes. I'm using Watermelon as an example, but I've actually read this one, but it is pretty chunky as you can see, and that is actually the same for all of the other books that Marian has written. I think Watermelon itself is about 550 to 600 pages long, and that is not unheard of when you're talking about Marian's back catalogue. I have got 4 or 5 of her books that are still on my shelf that I need to read, and you can actually see them all up there. I have got The Brightest Star in the Sky, The Other Side of the Story, The Woman Who Stole My Life, This Charming Man, Sushi for Beginners, and also her new book, My Favorite Mistake, which is coming out at the end of April. All of these books will clock in at around 550 to 600 pages, which needs a little bit more time for me. It needs a little bit more time for me to sit down and adjust and to actually have the time to read them, because Marian's writing is so engrossing and encapsulating that when I sit down and I pick up a book of hers, I actually don't want to give up on it. I don't want to get up and I don't want to read something else. I actually just want to stay and encapsulate myself in the book. I just need to have the time to do that. Next up is Fingersmith by Sarah Water. This one is another quite chunky one, and it is a little bit of an outlier for me because it is a historical romance. I got this as part of my Dubray Shopper experience back in July of 2022. I went in and I said I wanted something a little bit different. I knew what I was really interested in reading. I kind of had my reading tastes down pat, but I wanted something that was in a totally different genre. I wanted something that was a completely different story, but something that was still going to engross me, something that was still going to encapsulate me. And thankfully, Quiva gave me so many suggestions, and one of those was Fingersmith. It is set in Victorian England. It's set in the 1800s, which is not something that I've read quite a lot of. So that kind of change in scenery and that change in the era that we're reading in is definitely going to be something that will hold me back. But I also have heard that this is an FF romance, which is something that Sarah Waters writes quite a lot of. So I'm hoping that that little thing that I really enjoy is going to take precedence here. Another long book that doesn't just intimidate me because of the length is The Fine Print by Lauren Asher. This is the first book in the Dreamland Billionaire series, and I'm kind of intrigued by that because I like going to theme parks. I like walking around theme parks, I like going to the attractions, I like going to the stands and the stalls and getting the food. But I'm not a big fan of all the rides, I'm not a big fan of the roller coasters. So I think if I go into it with the idea of just loving the atmosphere of the theme park, I will probably get on really well with this, because it is something kind of like a takeoff of Disney, where the grandfather of one of the main characters in this book is the owner of a huge theme parks conglomerate across the USA. And I think as well that this is going to be a slightly darker romance than what I usually read. I think there's going to be some themes, and I think there's going to be some tropes in here that I might not have read from before, or that I might have read from but don't necessarily enjoy reading that much. But I'm going to give it a try. I am really going to give it a go, and I'm going to see how I get along with it. And if I enjoy it, I've got an entire rest of the series to pick up too. 2 super long books on my TBR that are part of a series but are on my Kindle are Us Against Them and The Winners, both by Frederick Backman. They are book 2 and 3 in the Beartown trilogy, and I am so worried by how long these books are. I don't know the page count of them, but I do know that the audiobook for The Winners is 21 hours long. So I think that will translate to roughly 600 to 650 pages. It is a book that I know is going to take some time to get through because of how long it is, but also it's going to have a big emotional impact. 2 of my friends, Neva from Reading with Neva and Brittany from Brittany Loves Reading, have both read these books and it destroyed them emotionally. Brittany even made a vlog reading them, and at the end of it, she is just completely destroyed. And that has given me pause. I am not completely devoid of emotion, but I don't cry very easily at books. However, Beartown did get me really close to shedding a tear. And now I am a little bit worried that when I do pick up Us Against Them and when I do pick up The Winners, I'm probably going to fall into Team Crier. So I need to be ready for these books, both physically for the endurance of getting through 600 and 650 page books, and also emotionally because I'm pretty sure that it's going to leave me completely a shell of my former self. Another book that does intimidate me, mainly for the topic of discussion, is Mile High by Liz Tomford. This is a sports romance, and any of the sports romances that I've tried before have been hit or miss. I had a couple of really great ones, I had a couple of ones that I didn't really enjoy. But I think that because this is a totally different sport and it's a different field, I think maybe I will enjoy it a little bit more. This one I think is about a basketball team in Chicago, and I've never read a book that has anything to do with basketball. I'm not actually very au fait with the rules of basketball or what is needed in a game or anything like that. So I think that this will also be a little bit of an education into what a basketball game actually is, as well as having the romance on the side. I first heard about this book and the series as a whole when Rainey from Rainy Blue Reads was reading it as part of her Goodreads Choice Awards vlog, and I was so encapsulated by the idea of the third book, which I think is a hockey romance, but I knew that I had to get to the first book before I could get that one. What she neglected to tell me is that this book is incredibly long. I think this one is also airing around the 600 pages mark. So again, I need to actually get my upper body strength back up to shape so that I can actually hold the book up while I'm lying in bed. Speaking of sports romances, another one that is lurking on my Kindle and possibly the longest book that I own at the moment is Pucking Around by Emily Rath. This is 750 pages. So I am pretty glad that I've gotten a Kindle version of this because I genuinely cannot imagine holding up such a big book in my hands and dragging it around and bringing it in my backpack. I think I would have my back made shreds of by about day 2. This is another one that is intimidating to me, not just because of the length, but because of some of the things that are involved in it. It's a white shoes romance, and that is a trope I've never read before. I've never read any kind of harem or reverse harem or white shoes, so I'm a little bit not intimidated, but kind of intrigued to see how that whole trope is going to go for me. So I'm going to go into it with a completely blank mind. I'm going to go into it with a completely blank slate and just see how I'm going to get on. Finally, yet another series that I need to tick off, but I also have a copy of The Bullet That Missed by Richard Osman, and in my parents' house I have got a copy of The Last Devil to Die as well. These are not necessarily super long, but they are quite big and they are quite bulky, so that does kind of put them into the long books and big books section of the TBR. I've had some mixes of opinions with these books. I absolutely adored the first book in this series and I still recommend it to so many people, whereas the second book of the Thursday Murder Club series, it didn't really hit the mark as much as I think I would have liked it to. And I know that Brittany from Brittany Loves Reading has finished the entire series, and she said that the third book is probably the best of the entire bunch. So I am genuinely really excited for my dad and my brother to finish out with The Last Devil to Die, so that when I have got my hands on both of these books, I can just speed right through them. Those are the longest book by pages that have been lounging around on my TBR, but that really need to get off of it sometime soon. What is the longest book that you have got on your TBR, or how many pages do you think it might be? If you'd love to leave me a comment but you can't think of anything you'd like to say, then just leave me the ruler emoji. Don't forget to like and subscribe because I have new videos up every week. Now, get on out of here.